is a PowerPoint that was done on last year's cruise, and it was a lot of light bulbs went on, and it's the one thing. So let's give Greg a round of applause. Greg, right or left?
Thank you.
It's all yours, brother.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here today, and you know, I hear from a lot of people that they have goals about reading books. I have a goal to try to read 1 to 2 books every month, and I feel like I don't have to read anything the rest of June because I got 4 good books under my belt here today. But I've been a member of TBBO for probably 7 years now, since the beginning. There's a lot of new faces here, so it's nice to get to meet everyone. You know, I remember back in the day, I was at a meetup that Chris was running, and Katie was one of the people in attendance there who wanted help with her website. That was kind of how they met back in the day, and it was great to be there for that. It's been great to see the group grow, and so much value that we all get from being here. So I wanted to share this book that's had a big impact on my life and my business. We've built a whole coaching practice with this book at kind of the center of it, and I think you're going to find that this will really help you in focusing on what you need to get done and getting things done. That's what it's done for me. So the book, the main concept in the book that I'm going to share with you and train you on today, you'll actually know how to do this coming out of the book. You can apply this to any of these areas of your life that you want to. And it's important that you're using this concept in the book as focusing concept in all of those areas, because any one of those areas goes down, meaning, you know, if your business is not running at full steam or your relationships are not in balance, you know, one flat tire can take down the whole car. And so the big problem that the book solves is answering the question, what should I do? Most of us fall into this analysis paralysis and tell ourselves a big lie that we don't know what to do next in our business, or we don't know what we really need to be doing. And the truth is, you do know what to do, you just may not have total certainty in it. And this book, the technique that I'm going to train you on from the book, leads you through this analysis paralysis to what I call liberation. The first part of these slides are kind of more into how I've used this instead of actually stuff from the book, but I will cover, we'll go in right through the book. This has been my turnaround. I've applied this technique that you're going to learn both health-wise. This is kind of me before and after from 50 pounds ago. And we've built a whole coaching practice around this now. And as a result of following these techniques in this, I've gotten to go speak with Tony Robbins, did a book with Jack Canfield. And so the question that most of us really are asking is, what should I do? Where should I start? And you have these big goals. I love that TBBO has you writing down on the sheet now what your 3 goals are for the next 30 days. And I hope you're setting big, challenging goals. That's part of what gets you excited every day. I was having an interesting talk with Anthony. I was telling him, you know, he was asking me, do I still go to a lot of Tony Robbins seminars? And I said, you know, when you have real clarity on what it is you want and why, you really don't need a lot of motivation anymore. But a lot of times the goals we set seem really big. It seems really hard to get there. What this book talks about is how you're going to get there. The fastest and shortest way to get there is by leveraging momentum. It's the domino effect. So if you've ever seen dominoes, a very small domino at the beginning there can wind up knocking down something that is almost 50 times its size. And if you can learn to use the domino effect in how you are productive, you can use this geometric progression. See, what happens with most of us is we make a list of things we could do to succeed in our business, and we start doing all of these things, but we're not actually taking the straightest path, and we're not leveraging any domino progression. And because the problem is life doesn't really line up that way naturally. There's no easy path of do this, then this, and then this, and things will happen sequentially. But this book shows you how to do that. And to help you illustrate what you're going to learn how to do, the book talks about breaking it down with the 80-20 principle. Now, we've all heard the 80-20 principle, right? But the inside of this book is compounding the 80-20 principle. I'm going through this pretty fast because I usually train this in an hour and they gave me 20 minutes here. But the compounding understanding the 80-20 principle works like this. Let's say you have a goal of you want to double your business in the next 90 days. That was a goal of mine at the beginning of this year. One of my businesses, we wanted to double it in the next 90 days. There's probably 1,000 things that I could do, right? And so if you apply the 80-20 principle like most people would, you'd break that down to 200 things, right? The 20% of the 1,000 things that I could do. What the book challenges you to do is to then apply the 80-20 rule again and again and again until you're breaking things down to what the one thing is you really need to do. And they give you a technique for doing this. Once you've done this, you've lined up the steps sequentially of what you need to do in your life, and you leverage the domino effect. So as the book talks about, there's one thing. The book gives you a question that I'm going to train you on how to use this question. It falls right into Tony Robbins' principles as well. To get the answer of what you need to be doing, you just need to ask the right question. And this question is really Keller Williams' brilliance. This book is written by Keller Williams, by the way. It's the largest real estate company in the world. They have more realtors than any other company in the world. And here's the question. So I would encourage you at this point to write down this question word for word. I'm going to break down how it works through a simple case study here. And then I'd love to help any of you today. I'll be staying around afterwards, apply this. And this is part of what we do in my coaching practice. But my coaching practice right now is built around helping executives and job seekers make the next change. We're newly looking to work with business owners. So if anybody wanted to be kind of a guinea pig, I'd be happy to work with you and coach you through this, no cost, just as a TBBO benefit, because it's something that we're looking to build next. So here's the question. What's the one thing I can do? And it's important that every word in here is strategically placed. I can do is an NLP-based command. What's something that I can do such that doing it makes everything else easier or unnecessary? So what you're going to do is take that question. That's called the focusing question in the book. By the way, there's no need to read the book. I'm saving you the time of doing that after today. A couple of people that were talking to me on my way in here, they said, that book's been on my desk for months. I'm like, well, you're not going to need to read it because I'm going to train you on exactly how it works. And the beauty of the book is this question. So what you're going to do is take the question and insert your goal. And then insert a time frame. So in this case, it's what's the one thing I can do to double my business, and I challenge myself to do it in 30 days, such that doing it makes everything else easier or unnecessary. The second part of that question, it's important you don't leave that out. That's the part that triggers your brain to think about prioritizing things. This exact process I'm going through here generated $384,000 in revenue for me in the last 12 months. So that's the question that I started off asking. What you're going to do next is ask yourself, what could I do? Write that down. It might seem really simple. Why would I write that down? The word could is one of the most powerful words in the world. And Tony Robbins talks about that a lot. The book doesn't make a big deal about that enough. I feel like adding that in on top of the book is going to create massive value for you. It's the same thing like I asked my daughter, how was her day today? She says, it was good, Dad. She's a teenager now. I'm like, what was great in your day today? And she's like, nothing. And when I ask her, what could be great? All of a sudden, she's got a lot to say. Could unlocks the brain about what could I do? So what you're going to do is then brainstorm a list of things that you could do to double your business. Now, if any of you have businesses that use the internet, these same things are probably on your list, right? This was my initial list of what could I do to double my business. Remember, I'm trying to double my business in 30 days here. I could go get more leads and internet traffic. I could improve our referral process. I could improve our webinar sales. We do these online trainings, webinars. I could come up with new ways to help and serve. I could diversify into helping business owners. At the time, we were only working with job seekers. This was 12 months ago. And so what most business owners would do is they'd have this list and they'd go to work on it. And I'd go start talking to somebody about buying leads, and I'd work with my team. I'd delegate somebody to take over the referral process. I'd think about what can we do to get our sales up. I'd start coming up with new ways for new business ideas. And what I'm doing is falling into the trap of going like this to try to get to doubling my business. Because you're working on all of these things sequentially. You're working off of essentially a to-do list, which makes you feel good when you cross things off, but really doesn't lead to any productivity. It's not going to lead to doubling your business in 30 days. So when you apply the question, it forces you to prioritize. You're only going to be allowed to do one of these things. And so what is the one that would actually make everything else easier or unnecessary? And remember, the 30-day time frame is in there too. So let's go through this case study here. When I looked at get more leads and internet traffic, I don't know if that one thing is going to double my business or not. And that's not really something that I can do in 30 days. It's going to take a long time for me to find a place to go buy the traffic from and then negotiate the deal and start having the traffic come. That just wasn't possible under the parameters of that question. That question forced me to prioritize that out of the loop. Improving our referral process, the same thing. Yeah, we should do that. We should be working on that. It's important but not urgent. It's not going to lead me to double my business in the next 30 days. And that's what I'm driving myself to do. Improving our webinar sales. This was the one I determined, you know what, I could actually get this done. I could make some changes to how we sell on our webinars, and it could be done and live in the next 30 days. And potentially that would mean everything else is now unnecessary, easier or unnecessary. I wouldn't need to do all those other parts if I got that part right. So here's the beauty of how you take this question and apply it back to that 80-20 compounding process that I showed you. You then take the again, compress the time frame, and plug in the answer you just had. Right? Am I explaining that clear? It's interesting because I do this training on a webinar a lot. And you don't really get to see people's faces or responses. So the answer was, from the first brainstorm, was I'm going to improve our webinar sales. Now I'm going to ask the question, what's the one thing I can do in the next 2 weeks to improve our webinar sales such that doing it makes everything else easier or unnecessary? And you see how I'm lining up the dominoes. The really big domino is double my business in 30 days. The domino in front of that is improve our webinar sales. The domino in front of that is what I'm trying to get to now. So I go back to the process of what could I do? I brainstorm 5 possible solutions. And what I'm building here are my milestones. I'm lining up the dominoes. So I had 5 possible solutions. I could get more people to sign up for our webinar. And again, applying that question of, does that make everything else easier or unnecessary? No. It's going to be hard to get more leads and traffic. That's kind of the same answer I had before. And the mistake I would typically make, or any business owner would make, is you'd start working on all of these things. Again, all of these subsets of improve our webinar sales would be things I would fall into the trap of trying to do instead of finding the one thing that makes everything else unnecessary. Redoing the presentation, I certainly thought about that. That was a possibility, but that was going to be a lot of work. And our presentation was pretty good already. Reworking the offer, coming up with a whole new webinar. In the end, I realized if I could just get more people to show up to our existing training, that would make everything else unnecessary. And so I save my time doing this. Not only do we wind up doubling our business, but I wind up doing it in essentially a 4-hour work week. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to compound it again and break it down to 1 week. So now I'm really challenging myself to make actual forward progress in the next week towards that goal. What's the one thing I can do in the next week to get more people to show up such that doing it makes everything else easier or unnecessary? You go through the process again. You ask yourself, what could I do? You brainstorm, either with your team or with yourself or with your coach. I highly recommend you don't try to do this process on your own because you kind of get stuck talking to yourself in your head. You can't see things that other people can see. And what we came up with, again, here in this list, if I start at the top there, offering them a reward, improving the emails, like rewriting all of our emails was going to be not something I could get done in a week. Giving them a reminder text, that was a possibility. But what we decided would work best would actually make everything else unnecessary is what about people that sign up for the webinars? What if we just call and tell them, hey, we're excited for you to come to this webinar? Well, it worked great. We wound up in the first 30 days, monthly gross revenue went up from $225,000 to $257,000. And it didn't exactly double our business in 30 days, but over the course of a year, it added $384,000 new dollars in revenue. And the question is, was it really worth it? The answer was, to me at that time, was yes, because I got everything done in the shortest, fastest amount of time and was able to go to a Tony Robbins event with the people I love. So I work with an accountability coach to drive through this process. An accountability coach is really just success insurance. They talk a lot about that in the book as well as something that they highly recommend. So that's the process and the question. Let me just put the question up there again and kind of how you compound the question. The magic of this book is in the wording of the question and in the compounding effect of how you use the question to focus in on what you really need to be doing. And they teach this and encourage you to use this in all areas of your life. Think about if you have a goal to lose, 10 pounds in the next 30 days. Well, what's the one thing I could do to lose 10 pounds in the next 30 days? Most people would start with, I could work out and eat healthier. Okay. What's the one thing I could do in the next 2 weeks to work out consistently? Well, I could, commit to a trainer. I could or schedule it in my calendar, right? You'd go through your coulds and you'd wind up coming up with breaking this all the way down. So I apply this I use this every day in my life in the 4 main areas of life. I use it for my relationships. I use it for my health. I use it for my family, and I use it in my business, and do it daily. And here's the one thing I need to get done today. My one thing today always leads to my one thing for the week, which leads to my one thing for the month, and I push for really big things in a month, and that's how you're able to get really big things done fast following this process. So again, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to stay around and talk. I'd love to get to meet you. There's a lot of new faces here. Happy to share a lot of good, embarrassing stories about Chris and Katie over the years as well. It's always a common ground for conversation. But thanks so much for having me, Chris.
Thank you. Let's give Greg, stay up here. Let me have that. Thank you.